Welcome back to Control Alt Lead, the podcast from computing where we talk to IT leaders about what's moving in the market. Today, I'm talking all about the Internet of Things with David Green, who's the head of innovation at the Blenheim estate in Oxfordshire. Now, the IoT is pretty widely accepted, but it's limited in its application. It's mostly used today in modern infrastructure like power plants, railways, airports. The Blenheim estate, which is hundreds of years old and covers a large part of northwest Oxfordshire, is a very different prospect. Despite that, they're using the IoT to great effect. They've got hundreds of sensors covering 12,000 acres, and they're saving on preventative maintenance, which is great, but they're also contextualizing that data to improve the visitor experience and attract new visitors. It's a really interesting project, so please do enjoy listening to it. Okay, David, hi, and thank you so much for joining me today. Why don't we start off by hearing a little bit about the Blenheim estate and your work there?
Fantastic. Well, it's nice to be here. Where do I start? I mean, the Blenheim estate, what a unique place. It's a unique office like no other. So we're 12,500 acre estate nestled in the Oxfordshire Cotswolds. We've got a rather large house right in the middle of that that we have to look after and protect. And we've got an incredible amount of wonderful rolling countryside and some great communities all around us, and an incredible set of staff here that really sort of inspire everything that we're doing. My role at Blenheim is a very unique one, actually. You don't often hear of the title Head of Innovation in an old house like this in this historical setting. I'm probably one of the few, certainly in the heritage sector. But my role is really split into three key themes. So the first is about building a culture of continual improvement and innovation. And this is really exciting because it means I get to work with the fantastic people of Blenheim. There's about 500-600 people here at Blenheim. And it's really about hunting for problems. So as much as we're very well known for the large house and the visitor attraction, we actually have, as I said, 12,500 acres of land. So we're very interested in how we are good stewards of that land. How do we improve that land? How do we look at the biodiversity across that land? Then we also have the real estate business. So we have over 400 tenanted properties, but we're also developing new homes as well. So it means that I can get involved in all of these different areas and hunt for problems across those areas and work with those teams and those brilliant people to help them, transform part of their work, which is great. I also get to work with some universities as well, which is brilliant. So I head up the partnerships with Oxford Brookes University and the Oxford University, and we work together on a number of different things. We are currently working on a digital twin project, ultimately sort of predicting failure in our building. And one of our key challenges there with the building is we spend something in the region of £4 to £5 million every year on restoration and conservation. And being able to predict failure in the building and to allow us to manage those sorts of projects in a better way is something very, very interesting to us. Then I also work with Brookes, and with Brookes, we've just finished an Innovate UK knowledge transfer partnership with Brookes. So what that means is I get an associate coming to work at Blenheim for 2.5 years in our case, and we get access to their business faculty and technical faculty, and we're developing or have developed now what we call a smart visitor management system. So we're predicting visitor numbers and we're predicting the flow of visitors across the site in lots of sort of clever ways. And then the sort of second theme of innovation is all about live data. And maybe we'll talk a little bit more about sort of sensor data that we get. There's a huge amount of data across our estate, but also manage all the transactional data as well, and typically use a lot of Azure's Power Platform to deliver all of that information, live data across the whole estate. And then the final one is about looking at sort of customer experience changes as well, improvements. So it could be anything from working under Horizon Europe currently with a big project called Culturati, developing an AI-powered audio guide. Or it could be, on the sort of flip side, eradicating single-use cups at Blenheim. So the story there is that we serve 400,000 hot drinks at Blenheim. And again, part of the hunting for problems was we were spending something in the region of £130,000 a year on single-use cups and lids. And a lot of those cups and lids end up in our waste and they go into incineration. And as much as you can generate things like biogas from that, actually that's not really solving the problem. So we've brought in a reusable scheme, a returnable cup scheme, and each of our cups, of course, some technology involved, are RFID enabled, and we measure them right away from scanning out through to the wash stations, all seamlessly. And it's probably one of the most successful deposit return schemes running in the country right now. And certainly the feedback I've had from some really major players is some great adoption coming up. So hopefully we'll have a wider impact on the sector.
Yeah, you don't really expect an ancient country house like Blenheim to have such an advanced tech team, but it's fascinating to hear all the stuff that you've got going on there. And obviously, the estate, you actually have a physical estate as well as just an IT estate, is an extremely different place to work than most of our listeners are used to. So you've talked a little bit about some of the unique challenges there, £5 million on restoration every year, for example. So how are you using technology to solve some of these challenges?
So the state's very diverse. And I said, we've got these three business areas. One of the key things that we've got is about measuring things across the estate. And typically that requires infrastructure. And where there's no infrastructure, you need to find technology that enables you to do that measurement remotely over vast distances, typically where there's no power or connectivity. And this is where about 4 years ago, I built an IoT network using LoRaWAN technology to allow us to ultimately transmit sensor data up to 10 kilometers across the estate at certain intervals, and then put that data to use in our data hub. And the second challenge really is about how you contextualize data. And I find this a lot with using proprietary reporting platforms. They're very good at telling me the information about that particular platform performance or the data within that platform. But actually, what really sets us apart here at Blenheim is how we contextualize our data with other things. And it could be anything as simple as, a coach party arriving on a wet day and the impact that has on the environmental conditions within the palace. And that ties back to how we share and protect this place for future generations. Or it could be looking at the impact of river levels or water quality across the estate, and how do we ensure the protection of our biodiversity and our natural capital.
A bit more advanced than someone just the caretaker just following them around with a mop when they come in, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, we're very different here. So our IoT network, we measure anything from air quality, water quality, people movement, leak detection, full environmental controls within the palace, bin level sensing, right the way through to some sort of non-IoT projects looking at things like soil ecoacoustics, so listening to the sound of soil, which is fascinating. And the team I've got is small, but we're very good at utilising master students who want to get some experience, or some work experience here. And we're able, with a very clear set of plans at the beginning of the year, to deliver some really cool things that you just wouldn't expect a team of two normally to be able to achieve.
Yeah, and obviously you've got a gigantic physical estate. I think you said it was 12,000 acres.
Absolutely.
So how many sensors does it take to cover that area, and how quickly have you been able to roll them out?
Well, not enough. Let's start. So, not enough sensors. We have about 250 to 300 sensors across the entire estate. It's been a really big learning curve using sensor technology. The great thing about using something like LoRaWAN is one, it's using radio technology. So again, you've got the benefit of being able to transfer data great distances with very, very low power. That's a really great thing. The second thing is you're not tied to a particular manufacturer. So you can use the best in breed sensors within the network really easily. And there's a number of different reporting platforms that you can use to integrate your sensors. But we found that owning your own data is really, really important. So we've actually developed our own way through Azure to actually bring that data back into a data warehouse, so we can get that data contextualized with other data sets much more quickly. An example of that is you use APIs to collect, information from various sources like the Environment Agency or Thames Water for when they're discharging waste into our rivers. And we then contextualize that to rainfall, river level monitoring, and even dissolved oxygen, electrical conductivity, all those sorts of things that can come from the IoT network. So being able to contextualize that information is really important. So the power of LoRaWAN is great from a long distance perspective, and the variety of sensors available, but then bringing that into a central location and being able to contextualize that with more powerful data sets like the information from the Environment Agency or Thames Water adds up to greater insight and greater impact and greater protection, I guess, on this fantastic estate.
And is that using, I assume it is, but do correct me if I'm wrong, machine learning must be quite a heavy part of that.
Yeah, I think, one of the key things is about structuring your data really well. And it's taken a while for us to build our own platform. Typically, if you take proprietary reporting platforms from IoT, you can't always get to that raw data. You can't always take out any of that noise, and you're always going to get some noise. A typical example of a river level sensor is it's using ultrasonics. It doesn't take long before a spider wants to go into the top of that ultrasonic sensor or something goes wrong, and you get a very big spike. Using proprietary platforms is sometimes typical or difficult to delete or smooth out some of those problems, and that's really where machine learning can come in. Another good use of machine learning is when we're using footfall sensors. So we, as I said, we predict risk numbers in advance, about 30 days in advance, and that helps us with our future planning and rotoring and food preparation, all those great things. But on the day we want to know where people are, where is the demand from our visitors and where are our resources and where are our visitors going to go next. So we use footfall sensors because they're bidirectional sensors, so they're fully GDPR compliant, they're anonymous, but they work with two brake beams effectively. Now, the problem with brake beam sensors is they are full of errors. You get a lot of miscounts. So in our nice office here with single doorways, they're much more accurate. But when you've got an expanse of 7.5 meters and you want to measure people passing at the same time through these sensors, they're very noisy. So what we do is we use various algorithms to learn that if you've got a group of people of one particular zone, you expect them to leave through one of the exits of those zones. And our algorithms are working in a very smart way to provide better estimates using learning of how busy those spaces are. And the reason we use, camera technology is always going to be better. So where you've got blobs around objects moving and object detection. But of course, it comes down to cost, it comes down to power and other infrastructure. So using low-cost sensors with these algorithms means that you can deploy them in parts of the estate, such as public rights of way or in the gardens, where you typically wouldn't have any cameras and certainly wouldn't have the infrastructure.
Excellent. And you've also been, I know you and I talked earlier in the year, and you said then that ChatGPT is unofficially banned across the estate,
Yes.
but you are using LLMs in a new way just very recently, aren't you, to look at reviews?
Yeah, the power in using large language models is huge, and processing the amount of feedback that we have at Blenheim is quite challenging. It requires a lot of time. Again, you need to build context into your reports, and also you want to build weight behind comments that you receive. So what we do is we use a number of different APIs to bring in the data from things like surveys and TripAdvisor and Google reviews, all those sorts of things where you get feedback. And we bring that in. In fact, we even bring in IoT data. So we've got some smiley buttons across the estate. So actually we can have a live sentiment score as well. Typically, when you look back, it's not as powerful as what can we do about it now. But we use large language models to ultimately collate all of that data, all that feedback from our visitors and produce a summary. And one of the key challenges around having lots of data and being very data driven in an organization like Blenheim is how do you get that information to people in a digestible format? And when should you give them that information? And that really comes down to using these models and then producing, and we use the Power Platform very heavily as well to automate communications to the right people at the right time. So we can summarize everything that everyone said and highlight on key areas, key topics, but also make all the comments relevant to the departments. So send out department relevant comments for them to address. So whether it's to do with the gardens, whether it's to do with the queue or a lack of food choice or whatever it might be, we can act on that data really quickly in a real smart way without everyone having to trawl through what can be hundreds or maybe thousands of reviews every month.
Excellent. And we're almost out of time now, so I'm going to ask you a very open-ended question. So apologies, but you have a very interesting, very unique estate, and you're using tech in some very interesting and unique ways. This IoT network all across the estate. Have you got any advice for other IT leaders who might be in perhaps not the same position, but a similar position, looking to do something similar?
I would say beware of a too heavy strategy. There's lots of IT leaders out there writing five-year strategies. One of the things here is we have a very clear goal or set of goals at Blenheim. We have our mission is to be the lifeblood of the local economy, to enhance the lives of local people and to share and protect this place. So that's a great thing. You've got a great statement there to start with. Underneath that, we've got a very strong set of goals. We know what we're working towards. So that provides ultimately the broad strategy of why we're here and why we do what we're doing. To go into too much detail with an IT strategy or an innovation strategy, I'd say is probably the wrong thing. The landscape changes too fast. I would say get started, but very quickly. So avoid long, laborious strategies and work in a very agile, short, incremental method. So deploying things like sensors, it's a very low cost thing to do, and you can be sold a very, very expensive system that solves one problem but may not help you in another way. And if you take the power of something like LoRaWAN and this broad network, it's doing all sorts from helping us optimize our flow of visitors. It's helping us manage this estate with water quality, air quality. It's managing our public rights of way. It's doing so many different things for so many different departments. And because we are in control of that, we can work in a very incremental way, and we can push out different apps and bring that data into people's lives at the right time. So avoid long, laborious strategies in this way. Definitely, it's good to have a broad IoT strategy because, don't get me wrong, managing even 250 sensors can be challenging. So how they're installed in the first place, who maintains these sensors, you don't want sensors biofouling, you don't want sensors misaligned. All of that information is really important. And I think also I'd say I'm very, very lucky to work with incredible people here. So use the internal resources that you have, use the people at all levels of the business to help you solve problems. It's very easy to get a lot of consultancy in, but they can be quite channeled in terms of what they're going to deliver for you. Ultimately, they're using their experience to give you advice. Well, when you've got such a diverse and broad set of staff as we do here at Blenheim, engage with them at every single level, and actually that allows you to do so much more, and then tie that into your incremental approach, and suddenly you're delivering things way beyond the expectations of any other landed estate like Blenheim.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, David. Thanks for joining me, and thanks also for helping me to relive my childhood, because I grew up right next to Blenheim. So I was obviously part of that local economy you were talking about.
And it's very important too. And we welcome you back anytime, Tom. Come visit again soon.
I'll drop in for a cup of coffee.
Make sure you do.
All right, brilliant. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you.
That's all for this episode and season of Control Alt Lead. We'll return in October with IT leaders from Admiral, Motorway, BT, and more. Until then, and as always, please do visit computing.co.uk for interviews, research, and analysis of the IT market. We'll see you soon.